So, hi guys, very
Hey,
nice to meet you both. Thank you for giving us your time today.
thank you.
Obviously, Stargirl was inspired by Jeff Johns' late sister. And so I was wondering, obviously, Jeff is very much heavily involved in this project. Did you, Brec, particularly feel a lot of pressure taking on the role, given his personal connection to it?
I did naturally, just because I wanted to do her proud, him proud, and do right to the role because it does have such an important story behind it. But Jeff was always so kind and complimentary that like any pressure that I had kind of dissipated just with him being there and him being so validating with everything I did. And I'm really proud of what we did.
Yeah, so you should be. I mean, it's a fantastic show. Loved the first episode, and of course, you've already been renewed for a second season, so that's brilliant. I've seen that the show is moving from DC Universe to the CW, and I was wondering because I remember when Supergirl moved from CBS to the CW, there was a few changes in terms of cast and production, and I was wondering should Stargirl fans expect any changes when the show returns for season 2?
As far as I know, there won't be any cast changes. And I see a lot of people on Twitter and stuff being like, the writing, like it's gonna change, like because I guess Supergirl did change a lot. I don't know. I haven't watched both sides. But I want to tell them, I'm like, guys, Jeff Johns is still our showrunner, and this is his passion project. You really think he's gonna let it change? And even like this is just an example. So like most of the other superhero shows, it's kind of more of a villain per episode format, which is amazing, but our show is kind of more of a season arc. And I know our season 2 is still going to have that season arc. So as far as I know, there's going to be as few changes as possible.
Perfect. Well, I'm sure the fans will be thrilled to hear that.
They're really passionate because they're always like, oh, it's gonna, I don't know. And I'm saying, no, stop. No, it's going to still be great.
I think, yeah, whenever there's a project that people are so excited about, they feel quite protective over it, I think. But
story. I get it.
It's a testament to the work you've done. But of course, you're not the only big new addition to the DC television universe this year, because Javicia Leslie has just been cast as the new Batwoman. And I was wondering, are you excited to see what she does in the role and perhaps for a potential crossover in the future?
I hadn't heard about that, but yeah, I mean, I remember Brec talking about, different crossovers with, she was saying it would be cool to do something with, who was that other character, Brec?
I always said Supergirl because I just feel like I'm always like girl power, go, go, go.
Right.
But yeah, I think she is, you'll have to look, Luke, she is perfectly cast. She's like this strong woman. I think she's the perfect Batwoman. I cannot wait to see what she does.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you'll have to look, Luke. She looks awesome. I'm excited to see her.
Definitely. Well, and you both have very demanding roles in this show, physically and emotionally. In the first episode alone, Brec, your character is constantly being flung around the place by that pesky cosmic staff. I'm wondering how much of that was real and how much of that was CGI?
All of it was real. It was all practical. Well, the staff, let me go back. The staff is CGI. I hold this light pole and they like visual effect the intricate staff into it. But as for like the stunts and like me being flung around, like that's as practical as it gets. I'm in wires. I'm literally being flung around. As for the stripe stuff, we do have a practical 16-foot stripe, but when I'm like riding on his back or whatever, it's all green screen, which is really cool to see, like from filming in this big green room to on TV where it looks like I'm flying over Blue Valley. And it's cool because Luke gets to be in the cockpit, which is on a totally separate set. It's like 3 different things.
Yeah, Brec did quite a bit. I mean, Brec worked all day, every day, and I'd finish doing a scene with Brec where we'd have dialogue, and I'd go get out of my wardrobe and come back to set, and then she'd be up on these wires doing her own stunts. And I mean, they used my stuntman sometimes just to get out of stripe. for me. And I'd be like, what the heck? Like, they don't even trust me at my age to climb out of the robot. They would use the stunt man to do it. But Brec really did all these incredible stunts herself and all those kind of intricate fight scenes. And, they go all night long.
I do have to give some props to my stunt double, though, because while I got to do a lot, she did a lot more.
Yeah.
Her name's Christina, and she's literally the other half of Stargirl. I have to give so much props to her.
Well, and you mentioned there that Stripe was like a practical kind of construction, and I was amazed because when I watched the episode, I just assumed it would be CGI, but it really does look quite amazing, like in person.
Yeah, that's the day Brec and I first met before we worked it all together here in Los Angeles. We went out to this effects house with this great company called Zoic, and that's where they built Stripe. And I thought the same thing you did, that, that it would be a green screen and they'd kind of Photoshop it in there. But this was a 17-foot tall robot, and each little detail was perfectly done. And I don't know, I just always love those effects guys and, what they can build. And they just remind you of those guys in high school that could like take apart a radio and put it back together. But yeah, they really are artists.
And how did you find kind of, Brec mentioned that you do a lot of scenes in the cockpit and kind of reacting to stuff. Is that quite difficult, kind of imagining things going on?
It was interesting doing it because it's one of those things you kind of like take for granted. And I remember specifically saying to Jeff Johns, I said, it makes you realize like how good somebody like Harrison Ford playing Han Solo is, like flying the Millennium Falcon, because all that stuff you kind of take for granted, all the kind of outlandish dialogue and stuff like that, of looking out the cockpit windows where, as a kid, I just totally believed it, as I would now. And then kind of when you're doing that stuff and you're in the cockpit, Jeff and I even went back and watched some of those Harrison Ford scenes, because you really have to believe in it. And I would just try and kind of think like, okay, like you're basically a fighter pilot, that's how you have to kind of act. And but no, it definitely made me, it's not one of those things like, oh, okay, no problem, I'm in the cockpit and I'm fighting against Brainwave, and he's throwing a bus at me and I'm catching it, and all that kind of stuff where you read it and you don't really think about it, but then when you're doing it, you really, at least for me, I had to kind of, focus to feel like, I was doing a good job on it.
Yeah, no, it seems like it would be very, very challenging. A lot of kind of imagination involved. And as we said, you've been renewed for season 2. So again, big congratulations. Do you have any idea, obviously with coronavirus and things like that, do you have any idea of when filming might begin?
Well, Brec and I were just talking about that, and it is interesting that nobody really quite seems to know anything. I mean, Brec and I were just saying that maybe we'll go back to work sometime between October and January, but I know other actors, and my brother was 2 months into a 6-month job on a Marvel thing, and he doesn't know when he's going back to work. And I was telling Brec, I have a friend who's a football broadcaster, American football, and he doesn't know if they're even going to have a season. So all of this is very much up in the air. But you just want people to kind of figure things out, hopefully, so that people can go back to work. And I mean, it definitely will feel very lucky and appreciative when we get to go back to work.